People often ask the question, will they ever do live action Sailor Moon, either as a movie or a television show? The thing is, they already have. It's called Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. Oh God. This is for real. Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, otherwise referred to as PGSM, was a Japanese TV series based off the manga. It was released in 2003 and had 49 episodes, or acts, along with 2 made-for-DVD spin-offs. So for those of you who want to know what Sailor Moon would be like if it was more faithful to the manga and then some, this show is for you. Granted, the new anime is premiering, but if you want to binge something before that new anime, PGSM is floating around the internet. However, this show is not without changes, just like any other adaptation. Well, let's start with what's similar with the manga and even the anime. For starters, this is much more character-based, which some would argue the manga is more character-based than the anime. And many of the characters are more similar to the manga counterparts, especially noting Sailor Mars and Sailor Moon, who were pretty close to each other in the manga, as opposed to the anime where they were constantly fighting. They have a few disagreements in PGSM, but nothing to the extent of the anime. Same goes for the characters of Sailor Jupiter and Mercury, who are also closer to their manga counterparts. And most importantly, there's more character backstory with everyone in here. The best thing about PGSM is the relationship between Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask, Usagi Mamoru were at it. Much like in the anime and the manga, they start off petty to each other. They're always fighting. Usagi's always going, oh, you again, what are you up to? He's making fun of her, although he doesn't make fun of her a lot in PGSM. He kind of takes his jabs at her, but nothing to the extent of the anime, and even the manga, like I said again. There is a bit of hint of a romance in the manga, and the anime there kind of is, but that's only really in the episode where they find out they were lovers in the past. PGSM takes its time. They actually add some characters, more on that in a bit, one of them being Mamoru's fiancé, who's engaged with him because her father helped Mamoru out with finances and school. He was pretty much the benefactor. Okay, can you really see where this whole plot's going? Yeah. Oh, and Usagi is not as dumb as she is in the anime, but she still has this naivete to her, being like, well, a little ditzy, but not to the point of the anime. Although, let's be honest, it was the freaking English dub that really dumbed her down. I mean, just look at the scene where she finds out Tuxedo Mask is Mamoru. This is all I can think of.
It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
Bruce?
Damn you! You little prying Pandora! You little demon! Is this what you wanted to see? Curse you! You little lying Delilah! You little viper! Now you cannot ever be free! Damn you!
And they do add the story that Beryl was in love with Endymion, but he did not share the same feelings as her. And it was hinted in the anime, but it was more concrete in the manga. They actually flat out show in the manga and in PGSM that, more so in the manga, that Beryl was in love with Endymion, but got jealous because he didn't like her. He liked Serenity more. He fell in love with Serenity, not Beryl. And even the 4 generals are given more backstory, although sometimes I can get them confused, I'll be honest. Is that seriously supposed to be Zoisite? Oh, bright because he's wearing a ponytail. Their story tries to establish their relationship to Endymion, and they become more complex characters as the series go on. And it's really just Zoisite that's pretty faithful to Endymion. Subtext? Who knows? Out of the 4 generals, Jedi actually was the one that's always following Barrel's orders. Maybe even near the end hinted that maybe he had feelings for her. Yeah, look at this scene. I mean, he says this, and maybe he did. And actually, Nephrite ends up being killed at one point by Beryl as a way to get Endymion to join the dark side. But he comes back to life as Motoki's friend. Oh yeah, Motoki in this, God, he's hilarious in this. He actually, him and Mako-chan, or like Sailor Jupiter, have this cute thing going on, but it's all sad. It's like, oh my god, just shut up and get together already. Also, he's best friends with this turtle. After the episode where Jupiter appears / awakens, we're first introduced to her, that's when this series starts to stray, or becomes its own thing. It stayed mostly true to the manga, but when Sailor Jupiter came in, and then even more so when Sailor Venus comes in. Yeah, one of the big character changes is Sailor Venus in PGSM. They introduced her as Sailor V at the beginning of the series, so that was cool to see her in a Sailor V costume attire. And they do keep her as the decoy like in the manga, and she reveals herself to be Sailor Venus after the real Moon Princess is revealed. However, when it comes to her civilian form, she becomes a pop star, or rather she is a pop star, even though in the manga and in the anime and even in the Sailor Me manga, she's only dreamed of becoming an idol, as she says so. And it is canon that she is the presumed leader of the Senshi in order to protect the princess, and it's further confirmed here, although there have been confirmations that Sailor Mars was also the leader in the anime, but it's really more like Venus, Mars are the 2 big ones. Which is interesting because Mars and Venus, their relationship in this is just mostly a lot of like, hey, why don't you just join us? Which is another big thing. Sailor Venus kind of takes the whole I work alone thing to a certain extent. She's definitely the more distant one, which is funny because the Outers don't appear in this, spoilers. Unless if you couldn't really tell, but the Outers don't appear in the live-action series, and she acts very much like the Outers do in, more certainly in like the anime. They're very distant. They're like, no, this is my own thing. I do this, and she does this too. She's almost like another superhero that I know. And yeah, she's also very cold towards the Senshi, and it's usually, as I said, Sailor Mars being like, hey, just join them, and Sailor Mars is the first to know. Yeah, another big change. Venus has a terminal illness. It's usually headaches. They don't really quite explain what she has, but she gets headaches that cause her to pass out. And yeah, she's dying of a terminal illness. She doesn't have much time left. And it goes to the point where she dies. Yeah, she dies. She actually dies before the series is even completely over. But in the last episode, they show her again. Yeah, the last episode was really weird. Well, not weird, it's just like, wait, so... But yes, as I said before, there were additional characters in this that weren't in either the manga or anime. I mentioned Mamoru's fiancé a while ago. Other additions were Dark Sailor Mercury. At one point, Mercury is captured by the Dark Kingdom and is turned evil, so she becomes Dark Sailor Mercury to fight against the Senshi. I think this is interesting considering her character was very popular in Japan, and to turn her evil creates an interesting conflict between her and the other Senshi, and just them trying to get her back to normal, which happens, it only stays this for a few episodes, and it's quite interesting episodes, and just really weird seeing her be all badass. I mean, she's badass to begin with, but, you know, evil, that's the better word. Sailor Luna. Yes, we see human Luna in this adaptation as well. However, she's a little girl around Chibiusa's age. Although I do think it's weird that she does this when she transforms. A bit creepy there. I'm a little uncomfortable. Oh well. There are a few fans who do find her a bit annoying, but honestly, she didn't bother me as much as some fans. It's usually people say that was the jump the shark moment for them, but could have been worse. Is the antagonist Mio Karuki, who is actually Minako's rival in the pop music world. And she's constantly manipulating her into being her friend. And it gets to the point where she accuses her of injuring her, when really Usagi just had her hide away while she had to fight the monsters as Sailor Moon. Later on in the series, we find out that she is Queen Beryl's shadow to see what the hell's going on Earth, and also just in general making Usagi's life a living hell, but she keeps forgiving her because she's Usagi, she sees the best in people, which... that's nice, but at the same time, it's like, this girl's manipulating you to the point where she makes sure Mamoru stays away from her later on. Yeah, the whole plot of this is basically, do not get Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask together, or else the world will end. Moving on, one more protagonist edition, sort of, is Princess Sailor Moon. And this happens after Sailor Moon bites in battle, after they regain their memories, and this usually triggers her to transform into this form when something really bad happens, such as her brother's about to fall off and she's like, crap, or the other Senshi are just very weak. Think of it as the super season where when she uses the Holy Chalice, I'm blanking out, the Holy Chalice to transform into Super Sailor Moon to just do the final blow for the enemy, yet at the same time she passes out after it's all done. She kind of does this too, well, early on, and sometimes she'll just start playing her harp. It's almost like she's in a trance. Although, I must admit, it is quite badass when she turns into Princess Sailor Moon. Who would have known being a princess has its perks, other than, you know, being girly and submissive, but damn. And of course, as many would expect, it was sort of given a facelift in terms of technology. The series, that is. Here the girls have cell phones used to communicate and to disguise/dress themselves. Just think of the Luna pen, but this usually involves taking a picture of someone and then they will transform. Man, I wish I could do that. Just be like, hey, I could just look through, look through my old selfies and be like, I like this picture, change me now. It's not working. Oh well. The action scenes, on the other hand, can get cheesy, and you can tell they're choreographed. Yeah. I forgot to note in the first episode of Sailor Moon that Nako was inspired by the Power Rangers when creating Sailor Moon. So these action scenes are very Power Rangers-y, to say the least. But damn can they get outright ridiculous. Also because it is more character-driven, there tend to be a lot of dramatic moments that can get pretty soap opera-y. It's like if Power Rangers and a Spanish telenovela hooked up one night and popped out a baby, and this is what they get.
パパなんかと結婚してあ んな風に死んじゃったママがかわいそう。惨めよ。
俺やめさせよエンディミオ。この小娘を消してしまえ。お前はもうわらわのもの。拒むと言うなら。エリル様。ネフライト。
Can you just not see any of this on Telemundo or Univision? Like, I can just imagine. I feel like they've done this already, though. But honestly, it's okay, considering that Naoko was very involved in the production of PGSM, right down to the picking of the actresses. Also, they fill in the plot hole of, wait, so how do they not know who Sailor Moon is when she's right there, even though she's clearly not in her uniform? You know, that whole plot hole. How can they not know? It's obvious who it is. They have the same haircut and everything. Well, the fun thing is with the live action is they have their natural hair color in civilian forms, but when they do transform into Senshi form, they go to their respective anime wig hair color, you know. And if you can get over the fact that it can get cheesy and just enjoy it as it is a great show. Honestly, it's probably the best we're going to get in terms of live action Sailor Moon. And considering the US has the rights to Sailor Moon again, I would not be surprised if there will be talk of a Sailor Moon live action movie from Hollywood coming soon. Speaking of which, please email me. I would love to be involved in the creative process of this thing. By which that I mean, maybe you should just leave it alone and don't. I don't want that didn't work out. Even this, although guilty pleasure of mine. I can't really see this happening. I'll talk about this another time. As for the website recommendation for today, I highly recommend missdream.org for translations of all things Sailor Moon, especially PGSM. They're actually doing a review of how the new translation is going with Viz Media, and they're also affiliated with Sailor Moon Uncensored. And they also, I think what's great about Miss Moon is they also get the Japanese articles and kindly translate them to you for free. I'm pretty sure they're asking for donations. They always have like their donate button, I believe. You should donate to them as a little tip. Be like, yay, thanks for this. But yeah. So as for PGSM, you can't really find in the US unless you get a friend to go to Japan for you and buy the things, which would be the best way, but the episodes are on the internet, and I highly recommend it if you want to see what a live action Sailor Moon is like, or what it is so far, and what it could be, what could be better. You guys let me know. But I know what you're thinking. Where did they get the idea to do live action Sailor Moon? Stay tuned for the last episode in Sailor Moon Month. Yeah. Okay.
I'm the cook. I'm the man who killed Gus Fring.
Bullshit. Cartel got Fring.
You sure? That's right. Now, say my name.
Heisenberg.
You're goddamn right.